I know.
Started with handing out certificates and awards, and then we'll say a few words about the season, and then I guess that'll wrap things up. Boys, if you have your uniforms, please hand them in. Ladies, we'll hold off on handing the uniforms because this eternal, perpetual tennis season does not have any immediate end in sight, but it will end, and hopefully on a winning note. But we'll start out with the bad girl of Section 7. Oh yeah, you know what we're talking about. Tori Dupre. Tori, come on.
Sorry, Joe.
That's all right.
Serena Foster. Next up, we have Lacey Holt.
She's just leaving. Bring these to Serena.
Just to remind you, Mr. Enfield is a coach too?
Yes, Ms. Hanfield.
Oh!
What is it?
Is Caleb Key here today? That's too bad. Erica Sorrell. Face up. Jill Valley. And the tennis. And a letter, right? It's a letter.
She said she already got one.
Oh, if that's a mistake or whatever, then let us know. Okay. Actually, it's not,
Let's get into it. Oh, come on.
this was not our fault. This was not our fault, so this is yours. And we people find this. Next up, we have Abby Miller. Ariana Kellison. Andrea Moss. Aurora Slater. For the boys, the old man, McKenna Hunter. Adam Cater. Brandon Letourneau. Brandon's not here. Incidentally, Brandon is our only boys undefeated player this year. And it's not because he didn't play. He did get in the match and played very well. Ryan Marks. Brendan Boutin. Jordan Brulati. Devin McManus. And Troy Tatro. I think sometimes coaches, when they talk about a team's personality, how much fun it is, and how much we're going to miss them, how much we've enjoyed working with them, sometimes it almost sounds like we're saying those things because we can't really think of something good to say about them athletically. Well, they didn't win very many matches or whatever, but they had a great personality. When the truth is, as coaches, we find that just as important as the win-loss record. As an art teacher, I'm always talking to my students about finding art. And it's easy sometimes to find art in the visual arts, the performing arts. I mean, it's easy when you see a great painting. It's easy when you see a great television show or play, or you hear great music, to recognize the art in something. But there's also art in athletics, and it's doing more than the coach requires of you. It's pushing yourself harder than is required or expected of you. And I think that's the reason that we had this the success that we had this season. And also there's an art to relationships. It's having a profound and positive effect on the people that you come in contact with. And I think Coach Hansfield and I are in agreement that the boys and girls team are certainly examples of young athletes that have a positive and profound effect on the people, specifically us. And it's really been a pleasure to work with all of you. This season sort of typifies what it is to be a tennis coach here at Northeastern, in that there's some very young players who are unexpected surprises that come along, and not only do they turn out to be very good kids, but they improve. I look at some of the new athletes, like on the girls team, I see Aurora and Andrea and Ariana, our A team over here. And for first year players, they did exactly what you can hope for and expect. Actually, not necessarily expect, but hope for, in that they had great personalities, great attitude, and constant improvement. And so next year, as they step up into starting roles, which they'll have to, I feel very confident with their ability if they continue to improve. I didn't get to see as much of them as I'd like to because we practiced in 2 different facilities, and a lot of times, as they were playing their practice matches, I would go to Rouse's Point. But about halfway through the season, and 2/3 and 3/4 of the way through the season, I would come back and I would see the progress that they made. And it's very nice to have pleasant surprises, and not just that they're having fun, which is important, but they improved tremendously. The same thing is true with our 8th graders. Troy Tatro and Devin McManus, our first year players. They actually made the team last year, but this year not only were they on the team, and they formed a very good doubles lineup. They earned some wins. I know Troy got some wins in the doubles position. Devin McManus got a couple singles wins. I wasn't really got some wins starting at number 3 singles. And in the CBSE tournament at the end of the regular season, they both earned a win in the tournament against one of the other schools. And we look forward to them, improving and continuing and playing an even bigger role next year. Brendan Boutin, at the beginning of the season, he kind of got thrown in with the big boys. I mean, when you play tennis, you have to have sort of an even number of players at similar abilities. And we had 3 players who ended up going to states. Ryan Marks, Adam Cater, and McKenna Hunter, and we needed a fourth who was worthy, who could hold his own against those players, and fairly early on it was established that Brendan was going to be that player, and he did more than hold his own throughout the course of the season. We hope that he continues to improve and play in the off-season, because really that's where the improvement is, and I do expect very big things of him next season. For our girls, our first alternate for our girls was Jenna LaValle, and Jenna, kind of pushed me to pay attention to how much she was improving, and she got a little tired of playing, the same 3 or 4 players all the time, and so I said, well, let's see how you do, in the starting lineup, and I think the peak that I saw was that she earned a win against a very tough player from Lake Placid, and probably at that point was our toughest match of the season, and Jenna played a very, very good match against Victoria O'Leary from Lake Placid, and it was a win that I wasn't expecting to get. But it was a very big win for us at that point, and if we hadn't won that match against Lake Placid, we wouldn't have been CBAC champions. So and I think you'll find that with Jenna and with just about every athlete this year, even though we didn't win all of the individual matches that we would have liked to, when the season was on the line, we seemed to find a way to come through. Our girls doubles team, Abby Miller, Abby just won. Wherever I put her, Abby just won. Her first season, I knew she was a good athlete, but she even exceeded my expectations. She won all of her matches at number 2 doubles, and I put her in singles against Beekmantown, and she won that match. And had she not won that match, we wouldn't have been CBAC champions. But she did an outstanding job for us. And Serena, last year Serena was an exhibition player for the most part. And when she, I'll be frank, when she went out for the team this year, I thought to myself, well, I'm glad that she enjoyed herself, enough last year that she's coming back this year, and I wasn't sure if there was going to be a starting spot for her. Well, she established early that not only was there a starting spot for her, but, the record made her award as most improved player very, very easy. When you go in one season from an exhibition player to undefeated CBAC All-Star, along with Abby Miller, first team All-Star, it was a pretty easy choice that our most improved player this year was Serena Foster. For our boys, we had 3 boys earn trips to the state championship. We had Adam Kenter. That's a combination of Cater and Hunter. Adam Cater and McKenna Hunter. I told her that all season. By the end of the season, established themselves as, I believe, the premier doubles team in the league. And it's nice to beat a team, but it's always nicer when you beat a team that was seated ahead of you or had beaten you previously. And they beat all of the teams in CBAC in the tournament. The only team that they lost to was a team from Lake Placid, where they put their first singles player and their number 1 and number 2 singles players together. So they showed a lot of improvement, and they really they deserved their trip down to states, and they represented themselves very well. They looked like they belonged down in the state championship meet, which is, for Section 7, that's about as much as we could hope for. And again, Ryan Marks, last year when he was a freshman, and he was our number 1 player throughout all of the regular season, I said, I have to kind of withhold some of the things that I want to say about Ryan, because he's only a freshman. I'm going to be talking about this guy for the next 3 or 4 years. But one thing I did make a point of saying was that it is about taking a step. And the season before, he wasn't eligible to play. Last season, he was the number 1 player on the CBAC All-Star team. And this year, he earned a trip to states, which he hadn't done the previous year. And the way that he earned his trip to states was by beating a player that he had lost to earlier in the year. So that was quite an accomplishment. Like I said, it's always nice to beat somebody who beat you a little bit earlier in the year, especially when so much is at stake. And that is the reason that he is, that kind of determination, hard work, and focus and ability is the reason that he was this year's MVP. Tori Dupree had some health issues this year. She didn't have as good an overall record just because she didn't compete in as many matches. She was in and out of the hospital. And the first time that she was back, we didn't even know she was going to be able to compete. And it was against Beekmantown with the entire season on the line. And like I said, even though her overall record wasn't good enough to get her in All-Star consideration, with the season on the line, it was the last match of the overall match, and she won a very tough three-setter in spite of her coach penalizing her a point for kind of a controversial call. And it's kind of interesting, at least it is for us, that we just went to the New York State tournament, and the tournament director made a point of saying that what I penalized Tori for is not the kind of thing that you need to penalize an athlete for. But we wanted to err on the side of fairness and keeping both schools happy. And after I penalized her, it really seemed to focus her because she just kind of ran through 7 out of the next 8 points, and she won in the third set tiebreaker, which in essence gave us the CBAC championship. Erica Lacey, oh, yeah, hold on. Okay. Erica and Lacey, been with me, you know, for Lacey, did you start as a freshman?
Yes.
Okay. 4 years, all right. I lose track because I was like, Paige started freshman or 8th grade, and then she makes a point of pointing out to me that I cut her when she was a 7th grader, and she's been reminding me of that ever since then. But Erica and Lacey were pretty much consistently 2 athletes that I could usually count on for points. I mean, you have to get, in every match, you have to get 3 points. And Erica and Lacey were one of those teams that at #1 doubles, I could expect them to get points. And in the first match of the season, they lost a very tough match to a Peru team that went on to become undefeated during the regular season, first team All-Stars. It was kind of an easy decision. And then later on, with the sectional semifinals dependent on beating Peru, Erica and Lacey beat that same team in straight sets. And again, it was another example of when the match is on the line, our girls came through. And it's nice to beat a team that was undefeated, first team All-Stars. And I think it puts Erica and Lacey on top of the heap, which is where you want to be at the end of your senior year. Okay, Paige Southwick, the queen, of course, I wouldn't have forgot that. But Paige has been with me for a very long time. I've always enjoyed her sense of humor, her athleticism, her sense of being aggressive. She goes out there and she creates opportunities rather than just kind of hit the ball back and forth. And it's really been a pleasure to see her develop. And again, she's another example of really what I've enjoyed about the team aspect of this championship season, in that she didn't win all of her matches during the season, but she, at the beginning of the season, lost a match to, or not the beginning of the season, but she lost twice this year to Abby Higgins, who ended up getting the CBAC championship, the champion, but with the season on the line. And we didn't know at the time, but with the season on the line, she beat Abby Higgins, and she was one of the few athletes to do it. She beat Abby Higgins in a tough 3-set match, and had she not won that match, we would not have been CBAC champions. So you can look back to a lot of different points throughout the course of the season and see how just about everybody on the girls' team contributed to our overall success. Just to wrap things up, at the beginning of the season, I always find myself saying, "Oh, tennis, am I ready for this? Am I ready for this?" And at the end of the season, I find myself, particularly with new athletes, saying, I can't wait to work with these people again. And I think that's a very good sign about the young athletes that are coming up. And at the beginning of the season, I find myself saying that the part of the season that I hate the most is the first week, because that's when you have to make cuts. And I hate doing that. I hate, we talked about it, and I think we made very good decisions. I think we had more good athletes that we cut this year than any other season that I can remember. But the more that I think about it, the hardest part of the season is this part. Saying goodbye, especially to my senior girls that have meant, so much to me on so many different levels. I really, if there are a few things that I said wrong, a few times that I got tongue-tied, Mr. McCader, and whatever it was that I called you guys earlier. The one thing that I know that I'm falling short is conveying to our senior girls how much I'm going to miss all of you, because getting to know you and having the opportunity to work with you has meant very much to both of us. So thank you to all of the athletes, to all of the parents for coming tonight, and for coming to all of the matches, and congratulations. Before we go, I do want to say one more thing. Miss Hanfield does have flowers for our senior girls. Okay, she's a sentimental sap. And I do have certificates for the All-Stars. And if you want to, you can come, because I still have to sign them and fill them out and so on. But stop and see me or I'll make an announcement. I have certificates for the All-Stars, for the CVAC champions, and I believe for the state tournament.
And who were those all-stars, Dan?
The All-Stars, we had 5 All-Stars for the girls. For number 2 doubles, first team, we had Abby Miller and Serena Foster. For number 1 doubles, at second team, and I think if they had to vote again, they would be first team, but it's still quite an honor. For number 1 doubles, it was Erica Sorrell and Lacey Hogle. And at number 1 singles, the second team All-Star was Paige Southwick.
Boys.
So have our girls come up, do we want to call them up one by one, or do we want to just
Call them up one by one, embarrass them.
call them up? Okay, why don't we have Eric and Lacey, because Eric and Lacey come up, please.
Will you accept this rose and move on to the next stage?
You were playing your game and forfeited to one.
And who else is there? Caitlin's not here, so I get, wait, we get one extra? Yeah. Paige Southwick. Hold on.
How are you guys? Thank you for
Thank you.
coaching us and everything.
Girls, all I can say is have your, I guess bring in your uniforms, because I don't know, first of all, I don't know if it's going to be Lake Placid. There's a possibility it's going to be Lake Placid. Lake Placid is apparently protesting their match against Beekmantown to see who has the right to play us, because Beekmantown switched their second and third singles players. And their Olivia Wyan, their big number 2 star, was playing number 3 against Lake Placid for some kind of mysterious reason. And she won a 3-setter, and that was the deciding match. So Lake Placid is saying, wait a second, we're gonna wait on that. So that's what's going on. But we're just gonna have to beat whoever they send at us. So girls, keep your uniforms and bring them to school. And I don't have your rackets here, and be ready to just beat whoever it is that they put up against us. Okay?
Nothing down.
We all set?